Obviously a lot of entertaining celebrities, but Norm Macdonald used to come on our show in the early days, and those were, I thought, great television because we never knew it was happening, and it was always teetering on the edge of, it was all about to blow up. It's all about to fail, and it would always end brilliantly. And then he stopped coming around, and it was just a period that passed. And I was always sad about that because I thought, we're a very celebrity-conscious age, and people always think that the best guests are the biggest celebrities. Sometimes, the best guests are these people that you have a weird connection with, and it's compelling television. People see and they talk to me about it later on. Like, I'll be out in the world walking around, and people will say, "I saw that when you were with Harlan, or when you were with Norm, or with Will, and that really got wild and crazy in a way that they don't see on television now."
Have you, over the years, who are some of the people who have been your go-to people? That I just remember Dave in his early years had Terry Garr and he had Sandra Bernhard.
Yes.
And they were kind of magic together. Who are your...
I had so many people. Norm Macdonald was this person who would come, you all know Norm Macdonald, but Norm Macdonald, when we would have him on in the early days, to this day I've never interviewed anybody like Norm Macdonald.
Who was the best guest that you've ever interviewed, and who was the worst?
I love Will Ferrell. I also love Norm Macdonald because he comes on and his stories are all invented. None of them are real. They're all old farmers' daughters jokes. And he pretends he'll come on. I'll say, "What's up, Norm?" He'd be like, the other day I was walking down the road and a pirate comes up I'm like, "What?" Yeah, a pirate comes along and he's got 3 pigs with him. One of them is wearing a hat, one's got a pipe, and then it's just a complete waste of everybody's time that's absolutely delightful and hilarious. And so I love him.
Your favorite guests are always like the Bill Burr, Norm Macdonald,
Yes.
this might go off the rails really fast type of guys.
Yeah. Norm Macdonald, one of the great talk show guests of all time. He invented something that Norm Macdonald invented this amazing thing that I've never seen anybody do before or since. It's kind of like he split the atom. It was that revolutionary. Norm would come on and he would, instead of telling you a real story, like if I had you on the show and you're like, "Hey, Bill, tell me, well, and remember when I was living in Chestnut Hill once, and you would tell a real story about what happened to you in your life." Norm tells old jokes as stories that happened to him.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, "Norm, what are you up to?" And I mean really old jokes from like the 1920s. And he'd be like, "Well, Conan, I don't know if you're aware that I purchased a farm, Conan." I'd be like, "Really? You purchased a..." Yeah, I purchased a farm. Of course, I have 3 daughters." And I'm like, "You have 3 daughters?" "Yeah, I have 3 daughters on the farm. One very attractive, one not as attractive, and of course the third not, kind of, well, she's ugly, Conan. She's ugly." And I'd be like, "Well, one day, this traveling salesman comes to the farm, and he says, now, Norm, I tell you. And then it's like he's telling an old traveling salesman joke.
Yeah.
But
about halfway through where it's going.
I usually know. I know kind of what he's doing. I'm laughing that he has the balls to do this. I'm laughing at the audacity. So I don't even care if this joke lands or not. I'm laughing that he's committing to the fact that, no, he doesn't have a farm. He doesn't have 3 daughters. There's no traveling salesman. But he doesn't care in a way that is exhilarating and scary at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And plus, he probably has some people in the audience who are taking completely seriously, right?
Yes. Yeah. He's got some people thinking.
We call them tourists.
Yes. We call them. They're usually from San Bernardino.
Well, Norm had the greatest talk show moment in the history of talk shows with Courtney Thorne Smith.
That was epic. That was so great. And it's funny because
it's lived on. Who knew that we were going to have YouTube eventually?
You know what?
We could just queue it up on command.
God bless YouTube. I had no idea when those things were happening. I thought, we're talking 1993, 94. When those things were happening, I thought, what did I know? I just thought if you were up and you saw it, That means you saw
That was it.
You saw an amazing thing happen. And if you, and then maybe if I get to stay on the air long enough, we'll have a 1-year anniversary show, and maybe you'll see it then. But if you're not there for that, it's gone. And now I meet people, I mean, that around the world that will say, "Oh, I just saw that thing with you and Norm and Courtney Thorne Smith." And I'll think, that was a moment of my life when I was 30.
Yeah.
And I'm like 85 now. Like, how is that possible?
Straight to the heart. I went a long time acting like I wasn't broken apart by you.
Everybody knows now Norm Macdonald died 2 days ago, and I got the news like everyone else, just absolutely stunned. Had no idea that Norm had not only been very ill, but been very ill for a very long time. None of us had any idea. And there's been this seismic reaction, which is appropriate, completely appropriate in the comedy world. And a lot's been said about Norm. And I just had this very strong feeling yesterday that I needed to talk to people about it, and talk to people who, like me, experience Norm in the moment, and really try and understand what it was about this man, this very improbable, unusual man. What made him so different? And I maintain that, we are accustomed, sadly, to losing funny, talented people all the time, and we grow accustomed to it. I think Norm's impact is only going to grow, and I think his significance in comedy is only going to expand over time, because he was such an incredible talent, and trying to describe what made Norm different is so difficult. And I think so far, I've read everything that's out there, and I'm hearing, to be fair, people were all taken by surprise. You're just hearing he was an original and there was no one like Norm. And I keep thinking, no one's getting to it. And I just wanted to take a stab today to try and understand what exactly it was about this guy that was so brilliantly unusual, and is going to be so lasting, and his work is so important. And one of the things that speaks to, I was having a conversation with Jim Downey, and in the wake of Norm's death, and Jim Downey, and I was trying to get to what is it that made Norm so different, and he reminded me. He said, on Weekend Update, we would do there's a dress rehearsal, which I know because I worked at Saturday Night Live. There's a dress rehearsal, and he said the best way to test a joke on Weekend Update is at dress rehearsal. If it does well at dress rehearsal, it will do well on air. If it doesn't do well at dress rehearsal, it will bomb on air. It's the best way to test it. And he said that Norm would do a joke at dress rehearsal that they both loved, and it would get nothing. And when Weekend Update was over, Jim would say, yeah, it's too bad that joke didn't do well. And Norm would say, like, yeah, I know, but we got to do it. So he would do jokes that he knew were going to get nothing.
Yeah.
If he thought the joke was worthwhile, he didn't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is very uncommon. That is very...
Well, he never pandered.
He didn't pander at all. And that takes... that's what made me think about the line you said so many years ago, Andy. Like, it almost terrifies me, his fearlessness, because it was the thing he did so many times on our show, which I thought was absolutely outrageous, was he would
launch into these long stories that you quickly realized were farmers' daughter jokes.
Or shaggy dog.
Shaggy dog stories.
Just absolute horseshit.
Absolute horseshit stories. And he would go on and on and on. And I'm so happy that the moth joke has been getting circulated so much from our Tonight Show, because it is completely outrageous what he's doing. It is, it's the Tonight Show, and he is telling this very long story, and he's taking all the time in the world. And I love it just because even though I was there, I'm delighted every time I see it.
Yeah.
I every time I see it, I'm delighted with it, because what he's doing breaks every rule. Brevity is the soul of wit. That is the rule.
Yeah.
Keep it, and man, he completely, like Picasso, blew up the form. He goes and he tells this joke forever, and then finally gets to this punchline, and you can see that everyone's delighted, but he has broken every rule in the book. And I was talking to Lori Joe, and I asked her if it's okay if I related this, and she said it was okay. But she said that not too long ago, someone asked Norm about the moth story that he told on our Tonight Show, and that she said, the guy wanted to know what made you have the nerve to do that, and that he said that, it was that goddamn Frank Smiley. He said, I was only supposed to do one segment, and then suddenly in the commercial break, Frank came over and said, you're doing another one, because whenever I had Norm, I was greedy. I wanted more Norm. I always wanted more Norm. And so he didn't know that we were going to ask him to do a second segment. He had nothing planned, absolutely nothing planned. And so as recently as not that long ago, I think this was a couple of months ago, he was telling somebody, damn it, that was Frank Smiley. Hey, get back out there. Conan wants more.
So he heard that joke from Colin Quinn. And he did the segment. And it was he had 7 minutes prepared.
Yeah.
And so he basically, you say, and then he's done. You say, we'll be right back with more Norm. And he goes, I've got nothing to say.
Yeah.
So then he remembered the Colin joke, and it was a 20-second joke. So he asked you, how long is the segment? And he was hoping you'd say 20 seconds.
Right.
But you said 7 minutes.
Yep.
So it became a 7-minute joke.
Yeah, and he's doing that. This has to be understood. He's doing this on the fly.
Yep.
So his way to slow it down that he came up with on the fly is he invents...
It's a Chekhov play.
It's a Chekhov play.
With Russian names.
And there's a sadness, an ineffable sadness in life weighing on the character's soul. And and I'm thinking, I've never met anybody who would take that chance and make that choice. And I'll never meet anybody like him again.
He was the ballsiest comedian in the history of comedians.
He was taking that, and he was saying, the joke doesn't matter. Like that, he would watching that, seeing that clip again. You're getting to see his brain. Yeah. He's just showing you his brain. And the notion that that the joke is the thing. The joke isn't the thing.
No, it's the journey.
It's taking a stroll through this guy's brain and hearing the choices that he makes and what he has to say. And and I think that was kind of what, there was so much of what he would say, well, that doesn't matter, this matters. And what mattered to him was his own self-expression, was spreading his own kind of genius and his own point of view. There's a clip out, he did some roast, and I remember seeing it at the time. I can't remember who it was that he was roasting, but all his jokes are things.
It was Bob Saget.
Was it Bob Saget?
Yes. And it was unbelievable.
It was, but all the jokes were things like, Bob often has a lot of things on, or, Bob often has things on his mind. It's when he's wearing a hat. It was all these dad jokes, intentionally bombed.
Right.
And then I didn't even know this, but I remember feeling like, okay, Norm, I mean, you know, these are funny and you're funny doing them because you can't help but be funny, but feels a little hostile, you know, like why are you breaking from what this, you know, you were invited to a costume party and you came, you know, in a tuxedo, you know, whatever. He didn't play by the rules of the thing. Turns out the producers told him, really go for it, really get him. And Norm was like, yeah, you're going to tell me what to do. Here, I'll do this. I'll do the softest, lamest dad jokes I can come up with.
Yeah.
And it was just a fuck you to the producers. It looked weird at the time. It was funny in a way, but it still was just like, it was Norm doing what the fuck he wanted to do.
It was still hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like Norm couldn't not be funny.
Yeah.
I've had this gnawing regret this last day and a half, and it's reading all this praise for Norm, which again I believe is completely justified and will endure. And it's been a regret that he didn't get to experience this. You know, he took so much flack in his career. He took so much shit. And yes, he knew that he had fans, but I wish, you know, it's a common wish for people, but I wish he had been able to read the stuff that's being written about him. I wish he knew how beloved he is, and also how in awe comedians are of what he did and what he meant, and how you know,
how important he was to the people who are probably the most important people in the world to him.
Yeah.
You know,
and he, you know, I wish he knew that. And that's the one regret you know, he kept his illness a complete secret from everybody. And that was his choice, and I respect that choice.
See how it's done.
But selfishly, for me, I wish I had the chance, and I wish a lot of us wish we had the chance to go in and tell him, you were a singular artist, and you've really made a huge difference. And I mean, if nothing else, I don't know of anybody that could make me laugh like that.